All right, so are you ready to dive into some, like, seriously spicy territory?
Oh, yeah. Hit me.
Okay, so today we're going to unpack this YouTube video
Okay.
called Battle of the Sexes, Grilling with Myron Gaines.
Hmm.
And it's from the channel Standout TV.
Okay.
You might know Myron Gaines from the Fresh and Fit podcast.
Right.
He's known for, shall we say, unconventional views
Yeah.
on gender roles and relationships.
For sure.
And this video, let's just say, it sparked quite a bit of debate online.
I bet. What I find interesting is how Myron presents his framework.
Yeah.
It's a very, like, rigid one
Uh-huh.
with this air of absolute certainty. He's
Yeah.
not just, suggesting different approaches to relationships or anything.
Yeah.
He's laying down the law, basically,
Right. Yeah.
claiming men are inherently superior and women are essentially wired to be deceptive.
Yeah, and he drops these pronouncements with such conviction.
Right.
It's almost like he's daring you to disagree from
Yeah.
the get-go. He labels most women hoes and insists that traditional roles,
Yeah.
men as providers,
Right.
women as homemakers, are the only natural order.
Yeah, and this sets the stage for his core argument
Okay.
that men should be free to have multiple partners, while women should remain completely monogamous.
Okay, but it's not just about the numbers, is it?
No.
There's this underlying message
Yes.
that a woman's value
Mhm.
is directly tied to her attractiveness
Right.
and her ability to snag a high-value man.
Exactly.
It's like he's created this hierarchy with men at the top
Yeah.
judging women based
Yeah.
on a very specific set of criteria.
Right.
And if a woman doesn't fit into that mold,
Right. Well, then what?
according to Myron,
Mm.
she's not living up to her potential.
Basically.
Oh, yeah.
And this brings us to another fascinating layer of his argument.
Okay.
The idea that women are inherently deceptive.
Okay.
He uses examples like makeup
Oh.
and women's efforts to enhance their appearance
Right.
as proof that they're trying to trick men.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second.
Sure.
It's almost like he's saying that a woman's natural state
Uh-huh.
is somehow unacceptable,
Right.
and that any attempt to improve upon that
Yeah.
is automatically a form of manipulation.
Yeah.
It's a pretty bleak view of female autonomy, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's even more intriguing is how this ties into Myron's ugly duckling story,
Yeah.
where he talks about being unattractive in his younger years.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if his current worldview is, at least in part, a reaction to past experiences of rejection
Right.
or a perceived lack of power in the dating game.
That's a really interesting point because if you think about it, his whole framework revolves around men having power, financial power, social power,
Yeah.
and the power to choose who they want to be with. Could it be that his strong opinions are actually a way to overcompensate for past feelings of inadequacy?
It's certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
And it highlights how personal experiences, especially those that involve pain or rejection,
Right.
can have a profound impact on how we view the world,
Right.
especially when it comes to
Yeah.
relationships and gender dynamics.
Right. So it's not just about stating opinions.
Right.
It's about trying to understand where those opinions come from
Right.
and what psychological needs they might be fulfilling.
Exactly.
And in Myron's case,
Yeah.
this need for control and dominance seems pretty central to his whole philosophy.
Precisely.
Yep.
And this need for control is evident in how he talks about women's roles.
Okay.
He dismisses the idea of women working outside the home, arguing that their primary focus should be on being attractive and supportive partners to their high-achieving men.
Yeah, he practically scoffs at the idea.
Of a woman having career aspirations. It's almost like he sees any ambition outside of securing a successful man as a threat to the natural order he's so determined to uphold.
Exactly. And it's worth noting that this rigid view of gender roles isn't just outdated. It's actually harmful. It reinforces the idea that women are somehow less capable or less deserving of fulfilling careers and personal ambitions.
Right.
And this can have real-world consequences, limiting opportunities and perpetuating inequality.
Absolutely. But before we dive too deep into the broader implications, let's get back to the video itself.
Okay.
Because it's not just Myron preaching his gospel.
Yeah.
There's a female guest on the show who pushes back against his assertions.
Okay.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Yes. Her presence is crucial because she offers a counterpoint. Okay.
To Myron's often extreme views.
Okay.
She challenges the idea that men and women can't respect each other despite their differences.
Right.
And she points out that women face their own unique struggles, dismissing his claim that their lives are somehow on easy mode.
And she doesn't shy away from calling out his double standards.
No, she does not.
For example, when Myron boasts about having multiple girlfriends, she questions whether these women are truly happy with the arrangement or if they're just conforming to the power dynamic he's created.
Her perspective highlights the importance of critical thinking, and questioning assumptions, especially when dealing with such polarizing figures. It's easy to get swept up in Myron's charisma and confident delivery. But her presence reminds us to look beyond the surface and consider the potential consequences of accepting his framework at face value.
It's like she's throwing a wrench into the gears of his well-oiled machine, forcing viewers to pause and consider alternative perspectives. And that's a good thing, right?
Absolutely.
Because healthy debate and critical thinking are essential for personal growth and for creating a more equitable society.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And her challenge doesn't stop at questioning Myron's personal choices.
Okay.
She goes further, arguing that true loyalty in a relationship should be a two-way street, not just something men offer as a benevolent act of protection.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because Myron's response to her challenge reveals another layer of his worldview.
Okay.
He claims that men are naturally more loyal because their loyalty lies in protecting and providing for their women.
Okay.
But this begs the question, is that truly loyalty?
Right.
Or is it just another form of control disguised as chivalry?
It's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
Because if a man's loyalty is contingent on a woman fulfilling a specific role, being attractive, submissive, and eternally grateful for his protection, then is it truly freely given? Or is it more transactional? A form of emotional bartering where both parties are expected to uphold their end of the bargain.
And this brings us to the heart of the tension in this video. The clash between traditional views of gender roles and the evolving dynamics of modern relationships. Myron's framework, while presented with unwavering certainty, feels increasingly out of touch with the complexities of how men and women actually interact in the 21st century.
It's almost as if he's clinging to a bygone era where men were the undisputed heads of households and women were expected to gracefully accept their subordinate roles.
But the reality is far more nuanced. With both men and women seeking fulfillment and agency in ways that transcend those rigid, outdated categories.
So we've established that Myron has some pretty strong opinions and he's not afraid to voice them.
But the real question is, how does he back up these claims? What evidence does he offer to support his worldview? Let's delve into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. One of Myron's go-to arguments is that his views are grounded in biology and natural law. He repeatedly points to physical strength differences between men and women, claiming this as proof of inherent male superiority.
The classic, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It's been around forever. But does he actually provide any scientific evidence to back this up?
That's the thing.
Or is it just a convenient way to dismiss any challenges to his worldview?
He sprinkles in these biological references, but never really delves into the scientific complexities. It's more like using biology as a shield, a way to just shut down conversations rather than engage in a nuanced discussion about the interplay of nature and nurture.
It's like he's saying, biology says so, end of story.
Exactly.
But isn't it more complicated than that?
Of course.
I mean, we're not just products of our genes, are we?
No.
Our experiences, our environment, our culture, they all shape who we are, right?
Absolutely. And the female guest actually touches on this point,
Okay.
arguing that while biology might play a role, it doesn't dictate destiny. She emphasizes the importance of social conditioning, pointing out that for centuries, women have been told that they're weaker, less intelligent, and more emotional.
Yeah.
These messages, repeated over generations, have a powerful impact on how we perceive ourselves and each other.
So it's not just about inherent differences. That's about how those differences have been interpreted and used to create social hierarchies.
Exactly.
And in this hierarchy, Myron clearly sees men at the top holding the reins of power and calling the shots.
And this brings us to another fascinating aspect of his argument.
Yeah.
His belief that women are inherently driven by a desire for security and stability, which he equates to gold digging. He claims that all women are ultimately looking for a provider, someone who can offer them financial comfort and social status.
Wait, so he's basically saying that no woman could ever genuinely love a man.
It seems that
for who he is, only for what he can provide.
Pretty much, yeah.
That seems awfully cynical, even for Myron.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it completely ignores the vast spectrum of human motivation.
Right.
Sure, financial security is important.
Yeah.
But it's not the only factor that drives people's choices.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to love and relationships.
The female guest actually pushes back on this pretty hard, arguing that while financial stability is a factor, it's not the be-all and end-all.
Right.
She suggests that many women prioritize qualities like kindness, intelligence, shared values, and emotional connection over a fat wallet.
And she makes an interesting point about how Myron's own framework might be attracting a certain type of woman. One who's willing to play by his rules.
Yeah.
Perhaps even perpetuate the stereotype he's created. It creates this self-fulfilling prophecy where his actions and beliefs end up shaping the very reality he's so convinced of.
It's like he's built a gilded cage, attracting women who might be drawn to the security and status he offers, but ultimately sacrificing their own agency and autonomy in the process.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this brings us to another key point of contention.
Okay.
The whole concept of emotional availability.
Yeah.
Myron claims that men are simply not wired to be emotionally expressive.
Okay.
And that women shouldn't expect them to be.
Right.
He even goes so far as to say that men should only share their feelings with other men, not their female partners.
It's like he's advocating for emotional segregation, keeping those messy feelings safely tucked away in a men-only compartment.
Right.
But how can you have a truly intimate and fulfilling relationship
That's the question.
without emotional vulnerability?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's where Myron's framework starts to crumble under its own weight. He's essentially saying that genuine emotional connection is a weakness, something men should avoid at all costs.
Yeah. But the female guest challenges this notion head-on, arguing that emotional availability is essential for any healthy relationship, regardless of gender.
Exactly.
She suggests that both partners should be able to express their feelings openly and honestly without fear of judgment or rejection.
And she's right.
Yeah.
We're all complex beings with a range of emotions.
Right.
And suppressing them only leads to resentment, misunderstandings, and ultimately a lack of true intimacy.
It's like trying to build a house on a foundation of sand.
Yeah.
It might look stable on the surface. Right.
But it's bound to collapse eventually.
Now, one of the most disturbing aspects of Myron's argument is his assertion that women are inherently deceptive.
Okay.
He points to makeup fashion choices and efforts to enhance appearance as proof that women are constantly trying to trick men.
So basically any attempt by a woman to look her best is automatically a red flag, a sign of manipulation.
Exactly.
That seems incredibly unfair and reductive.
It is, and it reveals a deep-seated mistrust of women and a complete lack of understanding about self-expression. Women, like men, care about how they present themselves to the world.
Right.
It's about confidence, creativity, and feeling good in your own skin, to label it all as deception is not only inaccurate, but also deeply insulting.
Right. It's like saying that a man who wears
a tailored suit to a job interview is being deceptive because he's not showing up in his sweatpants.
Exactly.
It's a ridiculous comparison.
And it highlights how Myron consistently views women's actions through this narrow lens of suspicion and distrust.
But let's not forget that Myron's views, while presented with unwavering confidence, are just one side of a much larger conversation.
Absolutely.
The female guest's perspective, grounded in a more nuanced understanding of gender dynamics and relationships, offers a powerful counterpoint.
Her presence reminds us that there's always more than one way to look at things.
Right.
And that blindly accepting any single perspective, no matter how confidently it's presented, can lead us down a dangerous path.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, it's clear that Myron's framework, why provocative, is riddled with contradictions and problematic assumptions.
Right.
But what does this all mean for the listener? How do we navigate this complex and often confusing landscape of gender and relationships? Let's explore those questions in the final part of our deep dive. It's interesting how this whole conversation brings up this bigger question that goes beyond just Myron's specific views. What happens when these kind of like rigid, almost formulaic approaches to relationships gain traction?
That's a crucial point. Because when a single narrative dominates the conversation, it can be tough to see beyond it. Especially for people who are looking for like answers for a sense of certainty in a world that often feels chaotic.
It's like offering a simple solution to a complex problem.
Exactly.
But relationships, especially between men and women, are anything but simple. They're messy, they're dynamic, they evolve over time.
To try to fit them into like a predetermined box just doesn't work.
Exactly. And the danger is that when people internalize these rigid frameworks, they stop seeing individuals and they start seeing stereotypes. It creates this like us versus them mentality where empathy and understanding go out the window.
And that lack of empathy is really at the core of Myron's argument, isn't it?
I think so.
He paints this picture of women as manipulative, gold-digging creatures who can't be trusted, while men are these stoic providers who are constantly being taken advantage of.
It's a narrative that's designed to evoke strong emotions, to tap into existing insecurities and anxieties. And for some men, it might even feel validating, like it's giving them permission to dismiss women's feelings and experiences.
Which brings us back to that thought-provoking question we posed earlier.
Could Myron's fervent belief in male superiority actually be a mask for dapper insecurities about his own masculinity?
It's certainly a possibility. After all, he repeatedly emphasizes the hardships men face, the pressure to succeed, the fear of being out-earned by their partners. It's almost like he's trying to convince himself and his audience that men are the real victims in this whole gender dynamic.
And that's where it gets really interesting. Because if you look at his framework through the lens of insecurity, it starts to make a different kind of sense. His need for control, his insistence on traditional roles, it could all be a way of compensating for a deep-seated fear of not measuring up to his own idealized image of masculinity.
It's like he's built this fortress around himself with walls made of rigid beliefs and pronouncements. All designed to keep those vulnerabilities hidden.
Which brings us to like the real takeaway from this deep dive. It's not about agreeing or disagreeing with Myron. It's about recognizing that these kinds of extreme viewpoints often stem from a place of fear and insecurity.
And instead of engaging in unproductive arguments or trying to like convert people to our way of thinking, maybe the more valuable approach is to try to understand those underlying fears, to ask ourselves, what makes someone cling so tightly to these rigid beliefs? What experiences might have shaped their worldview?
Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to navigate this messy, complicated thing called life.
Exactly.
And sometimes the loudest voices, the ones that preach the simplest solutions, are actually the ones who are struggling the most.
And maybe by approaching these conversations with a bit more empathy and a willingness to listen, we can start to bridge those divides and create a space where genuine understanding, rather than judgment and animosity, can flourish.
So as you move forward from this deep dive, we encourage you to keep those questions in mind. Challenge yourself to look beyond the surface level pronouncements and consider the deeper currents that might be driving those beliefs. And remember, sometimes the most valuable insights come not from finding answers, but from asking the right questions.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.